Hi everyone, it's Don and I hope you're having a fantastic day. Well, you're seeing a lot of stories and a lot of horror stories, especially from like the New York Post, the Washington Post. I have thoughts on those. They're starting to become like the National Enquirer almost. But anyway, you're seeing these stories about people's horror stories and quarantine hotels and quarantine conditions on a cruise ship. And it's horrible. Well, I have two sides to that story. So first off, let's be honest, when a magazine or a news article goes out to do a story on a particular angle, they're only looking for people who had that experience. So if I'm looking for somebody who had a bad quarantine experience, that's who I might interview 40 people, but I'll run the story with that one person who had the bad experience and leave the 39 who had the good experience out of my article. Because it's more sensationalized and it gets more clicks, right? Everyone loves the horror stories. Nobody likes, oh look, I got COVID on a cruise ship and I was in my stateroom and we just had great meals every night and the staff was really good. Who's gonna read that article? But if you write an article that says, you know, quarantine ship cabin like a prison. We felt like we were lepers. We were treated poorly. Our food was rotten and stale. And you're going to read that article. And that's what you're seeing a lot of right now. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of these stories are absolutely true. Some of the conditions you've seen in some places and on some cruise lines haven't been the greatest. Now, you got to keep in mind, if you catch COVID and have to move to a quarantine cabin, so you're not a close contact, you actually tested positive, they're going to move you to a quarantine floor. It's not going to be the presidential suite. It's not going to be the biggest cabin on the ship. These are designated areas that they've made so that they can carry as many people in a smaller area as possible and separate them. Because you're going to be separated. You're not going to be a couple in the same cabin. The couple's going to be separated as well. So they need more cabins, so they divide them up and they're going to be smaller. They're not going to be the most spacious in the world. It's not going to be like your cabin on the cruise ship. It's like you're going to the hospital. When you go to the hospital, your hospital room that you go into, I guarantee you, doesn't look and is not as big as your bedroom, right? So you gotta take that into your consideration that if you go to a quarantine cabin, it's not going to be huge. It's going to be a darker cabin. You might have a porthole instead of a balcony. It's not a luxury cruise. You're now in quarantine, and we have to accept that situation. As far as food is concerned, that could be an issue. I see stories where people are served food that looks like this, and that looks completely unappetizing. Hard-boiled egg and a little thing of rice. What the heck is that, right? I don't get that. But then you have other stories of other people who get food like this, where there's like chocolate cake and great food, and they're saying, you know, they may have to drag me off this cruise ship when I leave to get me out of here. The food's been so good. So you can get the stories from both sides. So don't believe everything that you're seeing out there that they're all horror stories. There is an exception to that rule, where I do tend to believe some of the stories are worse. There are more worse stories than good stories. And if you want to know that, just hang on a second, because I'm going to first ask you if you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. It keeps you up to date with all the news stories, all the happening with cruise ships. What's happening, which ships are closing, which ships are opening, what's the new specifications, what's happening with the CDC, etc., etc., etc. It really does help the channel grow. I'd really appreciate it, and I hope it gives you some information that you need to discover what's best for you on your cruise. And again, I'd really, really appreciate it. Okay, the exception to the rule is if you're in a foreign country, like you're in Barbados, or you're in Jamaica, and you are taken off the ship there because that's the rules and the protocol that the governments in that area are also, don't forget, the cruise lines had to sign all these documents and all these agreements, right, in order to sail. So they had to have quarantine hotels ready. I think in Miami, they have the Radisson Hotel is one of the quarantine hotels. Nice hotel, great. You're probably going to have an okay stay at a Radisson. It's not going to be a horrible stay. However, on some of these countries, the cruise lines have a set price that they pay the governments and the places, the cruise ports and everything to set up these agreements. Every passenger who goes off and has to quarantine will cover the cost. Here's the money. It's a set price. It's not based on the type of room. It's not based on the hotel. It's based on you're going into quarantine. And so some of the places, not all, just some, are going and saying, well, you know, we have this 5-star hotel, but then we also have this 2-star hotel. And if we put them in the 2-star hotel, then we can, you know, we're getting all this much money from the cruise lines, but it only costs us this much money to put them there. So we're actually turning a little bit of a profit. And that's what's happening in a lot of cases. You're seeing some of these hotels that people are just like, they're having a hard time getting their food. When the food comes, it's not terrific. It's often stone cold. You know, if you're anybody with allergies or anybody who has, say you're vegan, you know, or you know, and you don't always get the food you ordered because they just slap things on. You say, oh, can I have that omelet, please? Or no, say, can I have the sandwich, a vegetable sandwich instead of a ham sandwich? And you'll get the veggies and everything on it, and they'll throw a piece of ham covered over it anyway, expecting you just to take it off. And that's the same thing as if it came with no ham. And it's not. It's not if you're a stout person who believes in a certain way of eating. So yeah, the hotel stay, if it's in a foreign country, smaller Caribbean country, it could possibly be not the greatest stay. If you're in North America and you have to quarantine, chances are you're staying at a Radisson, a Hilton, a Holiday Inn. You're staying at a hotel that has half-decent room service, and it's a half-decent hotel. The warning is, if you end up being quarantined anywhere else in a small little country that doesn't have a lot of hotels, there are hotels that are not the best, and you would not stay there if you were choosing to vacation. And some of those hotels are being used as quarantine hotels. So that's a warning. Just got to put it out there. Chances are you'll be okay, but there are going to be some horror stories. Don't believe that every single person going into quarantine is having a horrible experience and they're being treated horribly and the medical staff's not looking after them and their food is all horrible and their cabin is rat infested. No. I hear messages and I get emails every single day from people who have caught COVID and been COVID, and they're telling me their experience, and I'd say 95% have all had really good experiences, thought the staff did a great job, etc. And it's the 5% that are being talked about in the media like everything else. The loudest people get the headlines. And the worse the story is, the better the headline, right? So yeah. No, I do believe there are some bad stories out there, but I believe in the vast majority, the cruise lines are doing their absolute best to take care of passengers out there, and I've heard it from passengers directly, so that's where I'm getting my information from, and not the news media. Take it as you will. I'm just some guy on YouTube telling you what I'm hearing. I have no personal experience because I have never been quarantined yet, knock on wood. So there, it's hearsay again, folks. Well, I hope you appreciate this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Want to see more tips, more tricks, more travel vlogs from around the world? Hit that subscribe button. Until next time, have yourself a safe and a great vacation.